Welcome back. I'm Connie Sokol, your host, and it is going to be so fun today. I can tell you that we have our wonderful guests, the Truman Brothers, Ben and Chad. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We are so happy to have them. I got to tell you, I was just saying to them before we started, in researching their stuff, I've been listening to their music. I can't get "Oh Child" out of my head. I'm toe tapping. I'm not even realizing it. It is seriously that kind of music. And so we have great stuff in store for you today, especially if you are a musician, but for all creatives. I'm going to give you the lowdown on the official bio, and then we're going to jump right into questions of how they got started and how they're making it happen. For the Truman Brothers, music and faith are in their DNA. Raised in Nashville, Tennessee, as sons of Latter-day Saint musician Dan Truman, they spent their formative years in green rooms and tour buses, as well as sacrament meetings and early morning seminary classes. Now, as recording artists signed by Shadow Mountain Records, the Truman Brothers draw on their unique background to create spirit-filled music, not just for Sundays, but for every day of the week. Their debut album, Quiet Revolution, landed on the top 10 on the iTunes Christian chart, and their songs have earned 3 Praiseworthy Awards presented by the LDSPMA, including Best Original Religious Song for their song, "Oh Child." In addition to their work as a duo, the brothers are also longtime members of the Nashville Tribute Band, which I believe that you co-create with your dad. Okay, let's jump in. I am so excited to hear how this started. Tour buses, green rooms as children. Let's go there. What was life like on the road and in those things? You hear from Donny Osmond. He's like, we're in the backstage of the Las Vegas show and the girls are adjusting their costumes and like, it was crazy. What was it like for you guys doing the tour buses in the green rooms?
That's funny.
The funniest thing about growing up for us is that we had no idea that there was anything unusual or different or weird about what we were experiencing. It was just our life, And, our dad would go on the road and leave for weeks at a time, and he'd come home. We're like, "Hey, Dad's home. Let's play baseball." "Oh, he's leaving again. See you, Dad." And so that was just the rhythm of our life, and we got used to that. Our childhood was extremely normal, except for these really random experiences where suddenly we are backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, or we are on a tour bus. It made for, I think, a good combination for us, where we were able to grow up like anybody else, but also have this experience where we saw music was a real and vibrant option in life. And it made for a general confidence that we could make music one day if we wanted to, although that was never the plan.
And what about for you, Chad? What do you remember? Any memorable moments?
I mean, for sure. It's crazy that our earliest memories were going to a thing called Opryland.
Yeah.
Which those in Utah, it's like Lagoon, but like much bigger. And a lot of the country people that were trying to get their names out there would go there, right?
Yes.
And so we were tiny little kids, especially Ben. And that's just how it was, performing and music from the get-go, right? And then you grow up and, like Ben said, the best of both worlds, to have the neighborhood friends that you just played with and all the things that you want as a child. But then, yeah, I remember I got to go senior year to the CMAs with my dad. That's kind of like a senior gift in a way.
Senior trip. Whoop.
Yeah, that was so cool. And also really eye-opening to see, like, this is kind of the Hollywood side of things, and it has its glam and, not, like, for lack of a better word, kind of the fake side of life, right?
Yes.
But also that it also can be very cool and fun all at the same time. That was as a 17-year-old going, man, this is weird, right? Anyway, so that's a huge memory. My dad went and got me this plum suit. I don't know why it was. And I had this like pink tie. I just thought I was so cool on the red carpet. Yeah.
That is so awesome. And I love the fact that it was shared as family. This is just so powerful. And it seems like your dad has been such a powerful influence in your lives, not just with music, but as I was reading about how he talked about when you hit the big leagues, there's free everything, free drugs, free women, free whatever. And it's a free pass. And he said, there's no laws anymore. And he said, he and your mom really sat down and said, we want to be intentional about how we do this and how good you kids were. I kept reading about how good you kids were and just really wanting to do good. And you're like, well, I can tell you stories, but really at your heart of hearts, you wanted to do good things and to use that music as a missionary tool. What are some takeaways that you learned from your dad? And that I meant, again, he is the Grammy award-winning band member of Diamond Rio. I mean, he is in his own right, a celebrated musician. But what did you learn from him, whether it was as a dad or as a musician? What's been that takeaway for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for me. There's kind of two sides of it. One is I'll never forget him waking up with me when I was in 8th grade for like 4 months straight and just teaching me the very beginnings of moving kind of from a classical book where, kids were just learning to here's how you begin the beginning of like jazz improvisation and like what chords mean and how to make, okay, here's how you change keys, all that kind of stuff. And those 3 months, I didn't like jump and suddenly I understood everything. But what it did is allowed me to just to look around the corner and I was like, all the other things that are available music wise, right? And then the other aspect that our dad has taught us is he's not better than anybody. He's so good at piano. He's in a famous band, but you talk to him and I see him talk to people and he's just another guy chumming, hanging out. And that was potentially might be the biggest takeaway, is essentially seeing more how God sees us, that we're all flawed and simple and siblings in a way. And so the hierarchy just didn't exist in his brain,
Yeah, specifically the way that he presented music to us, which, music, whether you make it or just listen to it, what an integral part of our human experience, right? The way that he laid out music for us was never attached to, and so this is how you get famous. This is how you make money. This is all these things. It was always about a sincerity of creation and being moved, whether you're listening or making it. It's all about some kind of real, literally spiritual experience that comes being true to who you are and then hustling and grinding out that creative instinct that's within you. Some people might be better equipped to learn how to take their music and turn it into dollars. That was never our main initiative. And I'm thankful for that, because seeking fame or seeking certain fortunes at the expense of things that are more important is real and happens a lot. And I'm thankful for a legacy of love and faith and music that showed us that here's the priorities and this is kind of the roadmap,
So good. And that was that show don't tell, that you're watching it, you're experiencing, you're living it in real time. So this isn't something, well, I hope I can make that work that way. You're actually living that already. And then it's just your choice whether you want to keep that going and propagating that. I think that is amazing. I love that the way that you share that it really is a spiritual creation, and that when we approach it that way, the way it comes across, the way people experience it is different. It's unique. And that there are those different pieces that create it spiritually and temporally. The creation of the world, is spiritually first, but then you got to move the tectonic plates. I mean, like you've got to the grinding out, right? You've got the work to do. You've got to learn skill and craft and set up before the show and all of those things. And I love that you have merged those two really understandingly together. So I just think what was so unique to me is that even with that immersion and all of this with your dad and music experience, you two really didn't get into music until you hit BYU. So can you take us to that experience where that battle of the bands and kind of what that catalyst may have been for you?
Yeah, saying how we grew up like anybody else, we did, in terms of you're going to have piano lessons. But Ben quit. Dang it. He didn't stick with it, and we were just kids, and we were just listening and consuming music. There's definitely families out there that come from like a music legacy who are like groomed to be a musical artist from youth. That was not us. We were just living our life, going to baseball practice, going to choir practice, whatever it was. But we always had this love for great songs. Nashville is all about the songwriter and the song. And I think that love for songs was always there brewing until we got to college. And Chad was this fantastic piano player. He didn't quit. And I kind of found my voice a little bit while I was serving my mission, literally and creatively. And we got together at BYU when he was a freshman, I was a sophomore, back for my mission. And we just started writing songs just for fun and the most organic way possible. And it turned into something that just kept snowballing until this podcast interview.
That is incredible. So I do want to hear very quick, because there's two things this makes me think of. First, at that battle of the bands, and you won twice, was there any moment that you were like, I think we should do this?
I mean, I know since I was in 8th grade, my 3 best friends and I all kind of were at a sleepover talking about life. Our brains were starting to look forward a little bit, right? Instead of just video games, and everybody's sharing, what do you guys want to do, as a career, that kind of thing. And everybody goes around and I was last. And I'm like, well, guys, I want to be a music artist, And they all laughed at me. All my best friends laughed at me. And I was like, guys. And it kind of was a little bit of a, I guess, a healthy like spark of like, you know what? A little fuel, you know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, just watch me.
yeah, in a loving way, because I still love those guys, right? I'm going to take that challenge because I know it's hard. But I've also seen that it can be done. You know what I'm saying? And so it was really fun to take that challenge. And then, so I was 13, 14, knowing I wanted to do music in some form. And so then getting the skill up during high school. And when Ben got off his mission, it was so fun in college to then go, okay, we have enough skill that we can put on shows. People are buying tickets to these shows. Okay, sweet. Let's enter the Battle of the Bands. All right. Where's our drummer? He's late. Okay. All right. This is a hilarious story. Stall for 10 minutes. Okay, now he's here. Okay, let's do it. All right.
No,
We're done. Oh my gosh.
our big debut at the Battle of the Bands, our drummer was the same night playing in the Philharmonic for BYU.
Yes.
And we're ready to go perform at the BYU ballroom there.
And we're dressed as cool, like cool pop rock as we can be, right?
Yeah, we thought what we thought was cool. And we're like, where's our drummer? We just got to start. And they're like, all right, 1, 2, and he comes running through the crowd, full tux.
With like the tails and everything, you know?
And he goes, let's go.
Oh,
amazing.
you could not have planned that intro any better. Talk
And
about a showstopper.
And I wouldn't plan it either because that stresses me out, you know that. But we ended up putting on this fun set and we ended up winning the thing. And to answer your question, you know, should we do this? I think we were just so like, wow, like this is such an amazing, weird feeling that we've written these songs that were in many ways so for us, you know, just expressing our own experience and just something to do. And suddenly we have all these people who care about it. Whoa, that's weird, you know? And it definitely does feel you like, well, if people are listening, let's keep making it, you know? And I think that's been true for all these last few years.
That's incredible. And for you to work together and help each other to be able to bring out the best in each other to make this combination, I just think is so gorgeous, and that you get to do it as brothers. So I want to talk for a second for those, especially the creatives that will be listening and thinking, oh, how do I write these songs? And how do I make that happen? How do I collaborate with the band or with others, whatever? How does that actually work for you both? Is it kind of like an Elton John, Bernie Taupin, like you do separate things and you bring it together? Or is it more like the Oh Child, where it seemed like you got an idea, woke up, put it on a thing, sent it to him, and you're like sitting at the piano, banging it out, going, yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
How does that actually work?
Well, first off, I love that the video we hoped would happen, that you kind of saw a little bit of our process. You know, that's not every song. Sometimes Ben's like, hey, dude, I wrote a song last night. What do you think? And like the whole thing's already done. But it has been fun to hone in, like you're saying, to the creatives. Like when I first started writing songs, I just was like, okay, I'm a songwriter. And then it was fun after years of doing it. You kind of realize, oh, I'm a songwriter, but everyone has a specialty or emphasis. You know what I'm saying? Some people have multiple emphasis because they're just that good. My emphasis is much more the musicality. And if I can bring in some beautiful chords or arrangement that can then inspire who I'm co-writing with, right? You know, Ben in this scenario brought in more of the melody. I brought in like for Oh Child, I literally brought in just that title and Oh Child. And the rest, I was like, he's like, oh yeah, we don't need that. I guess I'll stick with the Oh Child. I got it from here, you know? And my specialty is finding out the chords that bring out the emotion and then also inspire the other co-writer in the room. And we found great success by doing that. I'll definitely chime in with lyrics and different things. But the moment if I start leading out with maybe a non-strength, then we go slower in the process. You know what I'm saying? I guess maybe it's a version of just kind of being humble enough to go, this is what I do well. And of course, you got to develop that skill for years. But this is what I do well. And I'll have somebody else. Hopefully I can partner with somebody else who does a thing that I don't do well.
Yes. And everybody working in their zone of genius. And then the joy of that collaboration, because that is on a certain level. When everyone is working on their zone of genius level, there's this electricity of connection and collaboration of, wow, we just created something magical. Like,
totally.
Everyone's working at that caliber.
Yeah.
So good.
For the last year, I've had the chance to teach songwriting at BYU, which has been a fun little gig for sure.
Professor Ben.
And yes, people call me professor. It's really weird. But we had a co-writing song project. And I really preached this idea of how magical it is when synergy is found and you really create stuff that's greater than the sum of its parts. And we had the day where everyone sang their co-written songs. And when it finished, I just said, listen, how special is it? These songs would not exist if the two of you hadn't got together. They wouldn't have come out this way. So these only came because you wrote together. And I think Chad and I have been the benefit of that synergy and that magic many, many times, where his strengths complement my strengths. And like you said, he's so great at music, chordally, and musician wise, I'm not the best. And so if I'm trying to write songs, I'm often dealing with like red and white and blue. And Chad shows up, he's like, here's some purple, here's some yellow, here's some aqua, So like
here's a pop color. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's really fun. I'm like, oh, I'll take all this, and then we can go on making our painting. And so it's been a great thing. And I love co-writing with my bro. And it's amazing that a lot of people say, your brothers, aren't you kind of sick of each other? And it's like, sometimes. But it's always much love, whether we had the music or not, it's much love. And the music is just an extra bonus on top.
That is fantastic. In fact, that was my question. So you really dovetailed right into that of you two getting along. Have you ever had a disagreement about a song or the direction to go or a performance or anything? Have you ever had a disagreement about that? Like you really had to work it through?
For about 6 years, we had a disagreement.
You know what? There was a moment where neither of us were married. And so we were the only ones weathering each other's edges down.
Oh, man.
And since we've been married, it's like we become our wives' problems, And now when we get together, we're like, what's up, dude?
Yeah, it's
all good.
And I do think principle wise, it's important to remember just because something's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it. Of course, usually it's because it's hard that it's worth it. Right. And so Ben and I, honestly, if we weren't brothers, we probably would have broken up the band early on, just because it is hard working with another person.
Yeah.
But
sure.
I trusted, and I think he trusted me as well. I trusted him with, we both want what's best, not figuring out who's right. It's what's right, that kind of thing moving forward. When you start a band, it's so simple in your head. You're like, oh, let's make some music, right? That's why so many bands break up, is because that's how simple it is in their head. But really, you're starting a company,
Yes.
And there has to be kind of like roles and who's doing what, who's leading out with what. And it was important. Like when I got back from my mission, Ben is now about to graduate college and he's kind of wanting to go do music full time. And so I joined him, and then I was used to being my own man for 2 years. Right. And so now I got an older brother again telling me what to do or how I felt. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for a few years, it was definitely like a power struggle, different things. Right. And it was so fun. Like he's saying, we eventually, within a couple of years, we both got married. And then that alone, I mean, golly, if you want to grow up and get matured, get married, right? Like, and they'll teach you a lot of things real quick. It's fun now looking back in the past to go, I'm glad we stayed in the trenches and figured out how to work together, because now there's a trust. The moment we get on the phone, there's years and years of trust put into it. And you can't just get that freely. It has to be a lot of hard and sometimes awkward conversations, and maybe hundreds of them, right? And I love it because to me, it's created a pattern. I do the same, the whole goal is to try to do that with another now with my marriage, right? Healthy relationships are based on hard conversations. Yes. And then to do that with other friendships as they continue to grow and everything, it's cool that pattern started many, many years ago with Ben, and to now see that it's benefited many categories of life and relationships I have.
So good and so powerful, because really, especially since we're talking to members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, generally speaking, and others, but faith-based people, we really get that the most important thing is not the song, it's not the performance. These are vehicles for us to create these lasting relationships with each other and with Heavenly Father and the Savior. That's what this is all about. And it's so beautiful to see that you both have continued to do that. It's, A plus B equals C is not the equation. It's a quadratic equation, right? but you have, even through all of this winding, you've still kept that red thread. You still kept that driver of this is why we do what we do. And that's where it will be so fulfilling, no matter what's around the corner. I do want to dovetail with that into missionary work, because you both serve missions, but not just the actual serving a mission and coming back, but your music just feels so much like missionary work without handing out the Book of Mormon. It's just this
Mhm.
thread and this note that runs through everything. Talk to us about what that has meant to you and what you've thought about that. Is this an intentional thing? Is this just it just comes out in your music? And what experiences have you had with people who have listened to your music and how that impacted them spiritually?
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. You know, folks might hear our music, like, oh, it's like Christian music. And that's an appropriate category. But I'd like to drill down on that a little bit in terms of how I describe it, what we're doing, because we definitely, although there's nothing overtly like Latter-day Saint in our songs, so we're not singing about the Book of Mormon yet.
Moroni,
Yeah,
yeah.
or more like our Nashville Tribute Band buddies, where we're singing like very distinctly LDS stuff.
Mhm.
But Truman Brothers is always about expressing our faith in Christ, but as it is set up and defined by our gospel. And so we think that our gospel is beautiful, and the things that we teach about Christ and how we are supposed to grow closer to them, how that happens is uniquely our faith experience in my mind. And so we like to drop those nuggets in our music as much as possible so that, yes, we are making Christian music, but we're making it as a missionary tool to anyone in or outside who comes across it, because we are so grateful for the gospel that we have and the methods that it has taught us on how we can grow closer to Christ.
So
Yeah.
good. Chad, any
Yeah.
thoughts?
Ben served in Mexico. I served in Colorado, English speaking. And we both loved it. Like so much growth, so much opportunity for growth, and so much good that came from the mission. But like you're saying, yes, like I'll never forget my mission president when I was heading home. He's like, Elder, now the real mission begins. This was just the training. That was such a great angle. Some missionaries that have a tough time coming home because like that was everything. I felt so much purpose. And it's like, no, it,
That's
it was everything at the time. And now you have a new everything, a new goal, a new chapter, and time to apply all that. Anyway, in my patriarchal blessing, it says you will serve a mission, and it talks about the mission a little bit. And then it said you will also be a missionary for the rest of your life. And those words, of course, have resonated and challenged me. Ben and I first started writing songs about what we were experiencing at the time, which was just college and dating and love and loss and all that stuff, right? And heartbreak and all the things. So that was what we experienced. And now being married, Ben's got 4 kids. I got one, and in 2 weeks I'll have a little baby girl with us. And it's so it's everything, right? And so now life looks different. And so faith and what that means, trying to instill with the next generation and seeing life through their eyes, of course, it has adjusted what we want to write about. And so it's been so great to team up with Deseret Book and do these songs that hopefully other people in our similar time of life and beyond, but like can go, yeah. And it's not that we're writing church music. It's just we're writing life music
life music.
that is, that involves faith and hope and struggle.
So well said. And I think that kind of music, because the Spirit is invited to be a part of the creation of it and the delivery of it, that there's a different feel, a receptivity to that it does. People can be at lots of different life stages, but they can still, it's almost like when you read the scriptures, it will apply to them in a certain way that is personal to them.
Yeah.
That will automatically sort of personally tailor it to the way they fit and experience.
Mhm.
So beautifully said. Speaking of your families, knowing bookending kind of how you grew up, what do you kind of see of how you're sharing music with your kids, or how you want to share music with this cute little girl that's going to be coming to your family? Ben, let's start with you since you've had a little practice with it already.
Yeah, man, raising kids, man, it's intense. So far, it's been kind of like how we described it was with our dad, instilling a love for music as a listener and showing all the good stuff. My dad was great because he raised us on what he was listening to, which was the great stuff from the 70s and stuff. But when I was turning on Weezer and all these 90s alternative rock bands, he let me have my moment. It was okay, because he exploring music and what works for you is an important process. But all the while he would say, hey, check this song out. And I've been doing the same thing with my boys. My oldest is 9, and he is such an old soul. And so when I play music for him, he can get into it and be like, Dad, this is cool. And it's been so fun to see what resonates with him and what doesn't. And of course, he's listening to some of these kids' songs that are coming out too. But then I'll drop a little Stevie Wonder. He's like, "Dad, that's pretty cool," you know. And so that's first and foremost for me is just having a love for what I call the good music, you know, stuff that's real and resonates. And we're just now starting to be like, okay, time to practice the piano, bro. And so we just bought a little upright for our home. We hadn't had a piano this whole time, which you put the piano in the room and it draws people in, right? And so that's been my main focus this year is getting the piano in there. And what's funny, I kind of did it with my older kid in mind, and my little 6-year-old is now walking over there and he starts playing around with it. I'm like, maybe he's the one. So
that's the next Chad. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. The second. Yep.
That's so beautiful. I love the way you just naturally, organically weave it in, just like your dad did, and just let them explore. I keep hearing that theme of that explore, discovery, share a part of you. Like let it just be a part of life. Any thoughts, Chad?
Yeah, that theme applies to faith, right? Anything that's forced upon us as kids, you naturally go, no, then. Right. And so the last thing you want to do is force this beautiful, beautiful fruit that is the gospel. Right. And the beautiful thing of music, right? You just don't want to force anything. So it is cool. Like Ben was saying, the pattern of, I love it. It's around. Here's an example, like sharing, but no forcing. Like, and anyway, it's obviously a delicate balance that will, you know, as we get teenagers and other things, we'll be learning a lot more, you know. But at least for right now, I do love that there's some form of template to go off of, you know.
I've got to say real quick, my dream vision for this room we have in our house is finally coming together because I called it the analog room where nothing digital is allowed. So no screens, no phones, no TVs, no computers. It's the front room in the house. And it has now our piano. It has a record player with all these great records that I've been buying. And by the way, the new Tabernacle Choir is considered the Lily's 20th anniversary. They put it on vinyl.
What?
I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna get it. I'm so stoked. Speaking of music from my mission that I love.
Kids, come here. Listen to the latest.
Yeah, great stuff on there. Anyway, and then we got like a chess set. We got books. And so I say, if it's ever getting a little intense in our house, I say, to the analog room, you know, and go spend an hour in there. And they discover books and they discover the piano. And it's been a fun process for us.
That's
and for
genius.
me.
It reminds me of President Hinckley saying that his parents loved reading, loved books, but he said they never made them. They just had them out on the table, just sitting out. And that natural curiosity, they encourage that. And I love what Chad said as well, just kind of bookending what we talked about, the process of creation, that there's that organic thing. And then there's the down and dirty nitty gritty. We got to get in and do it. And that's my son, a year, everyone in the family has to take a year of piano, right? And he was like most kids, right? I don't want to do it. But then he goes into band, and the first day of band, he's like, oh yeah, thanks, Mom. He comes home and tells me, and I'm like, okay, now he's playing the French horn at 11, and he loves it. Who knew? But but he said, yeah, thanks for that year of piano. I went, awesome. But as we're listening, these creatives and all of us listening and wanting to move these things forward, again, as we're wrapping this up, I so appreciate and love this theme that you have shared with us today of it's all woven in together. I remember Julie B. Beck talking about the priesthood, how it's woven in and through and around our lives. And that the things we love, the things we want to move forward, the creative process that we all experience, whether you're an artist or a filmmaker, that we weave it into our lives because we love it and we want to share it and we want the Spirit to move through us to someone else through it. And that includes our loved ones, most primarily our loved ones. You have just been beautiful in sharing all of that today. I'm so inspired. I cannot even tell you. People want to know how to connect with you best. What's the best way to do that?
They can follow us on Instagram. It's just Truman Brothers, right? Facebook too, if that's your thing. But that's kind of our main hub. And go stream our stuff on Apple Music and Spotify, of course. But Instagram's our main hub. Yeah.
That's perfect. You can check out performance dates and how you can connect with them more. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, Connie, yeah. Thanks for having us.
So good chatting with you.
Thank you. Take care. And for those of you listening who have loved this interview, like I have, go and check out the other interviews we have for you. Amazing people. Dr. Stacey Taniguchi, Lisa Valentine Clark, Steve Young, so many people in so many different areas teaching you their tips and tools of how you can take your journey on feeling called to create.